Nervous?
Yes.
First time?
No, I've been nervous lots of times.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and how about a rare Wednesday mentor? We talked about frugality in 2025 on Monday, so let's follow it up with intention today with the guy who's all about purpose. We lovingly call him Doc G, Dr. Jordan Grumet. In our headlines, new tax brackets and savings limits have been announced. What do you need to know in stashing those Benjamins and prepping your taxes? We'll share. And then I'll bring a hunk of burning trivia to this heartbreak hotel. And now, two guys who are the wind beneath this podcast's wings. Oh, God. It's Joe and G. You make me say these things.
It's Bette Midler. It's Doug Midler. Welcome to the Doug Midler Podcast. On a beautiful Wednesday, sit back, relax. You found us. It's the Stacking Benjamin Show, and we are your midweek goodness. This is a rare week, OG, because as Doug so eloquently said,
begrudgingly said,
we have somebody who's not the wind. We're not the wind beneath your wings. Certainly, Doc G, Dr. Jordan Grumet is here. We normally don't do mentors on Wednesday. That's our Monday feature. But this week, special appearance. And OG.
Special bonus.
Yeah. As we saw in New York City, Doc G might be just a little passionate about
He has a
finding
little
your purpose.
energy around this. He has a little energy around this. Just a skosh.
Just slightly. And you know what? As he points out, you should too. And most of us, we're spending that energy in the wrong place. We're looking for these big, epic things in our life. And Doc G, I think, is going to help you relax. So, which is going to be great. Speaking of relax, how relaxed are you, OG, on, halfway through your first week back at work after the holiday fun?
I wouldn't call it exactly relaxed. It's more of it's a haze from the day 7 or whatever number we're on of the detox. Like everybody goes through the first couple of weeks. When is quitting Friday? That's what I want to know. Like, when do I saw the Apple commercial for an Apple Watch. They're like, the second Friday of January is quitting Friday. I'm like, yes, let's get there. When do I get to quit this nonsense?
I quit quitting.
Back to being unhealthy.
You know what's going to happen on Sunday? By the way, do you guys know it? So January 12th. You know why January 12th is significant?
What makes January 12th
when
significant?
You lost your virginity?
You're halfway through January already.
Of course, Doug goes right for that. Yeah. No, I plan to, Doug. I plan to. Yes. Hasn't worked out any other year on January 12th. January 12th, statistically, I just read this last week, is the day when people give up on their New Year's resolutions.
Oh, thank God. That's what I was talking about. I thought it was a Friday. It's like literally in 6 days. All right, I got this. I can make it 6 more days.
It's actually 4 days, but who's counting?
I'm going to have a bunch of carbs and a glass of wine. It's going to be amazing.
Well, that's done. But it was fun for 11 days and whatever number of hours.
Great.
You made it. Well, I got to tell you that even if you give up on your resolutions in the next few days, you know what you're not going to give up on, and that's finding your purpose. Doc G is the host of the Earn and Invest podcast, our brother podcast, where he likes to have these deeper conversations about money, about life, and frankly, a lot about purpose. His first book was about how he discovered a lot about purpose from the dying. He's a hospice doctor by trade. And in this book, he's not going to talk about the dying as much as lessons he's learned from living and a lot of research, just a really, really well-researched book he's written on the topic. By the way, the top of this book, this book has been referenced in 2 different places. Christine Benz from Morningstar, one of the most respected people in the personal finance space, had a book in September that was really good. She interviews Doc G about his findings from the Purpose Code, what he's going to talk about today. And that's one of the chapters in her book. And on the top of this book, Morgan Housel is a guy that writes the blurb on the top of the cover of the book. Yeah, Doc G doing some great work here. And you're about to hear it on today's show. But before we got that, this show is free because of some sponsors that pay for it, so you don't have to. So we're going to say hello to them. And then a rare Wednesday mentor, Doc G, Doctor. I can't say anything.
Wow.
Man, what's going on? I got a case of the Doug's going on right now.
It's not so easy, is it?
Doc G, aka Dr. Jordan Grumet, talking about purpose. And this is always so weird when I'm interviewing him about his topic instead of us deciding what's funny on the Stacking Benjamin show or maybe what the next topic is for Earn and Invest, whatever. Jordan Grumet's here. How are you, man?
I'm good. Is this going to be strangely serious? I mean, you and I were just used to laughing. I mean, I'm very serious on Earn and Invest, but Stacking Benjamins, all we do is laugh.
You are the guy, though, that I can very seriously say we have laughed together. We've cried together. We've done it all. So maybe we're going to be closer to, I don't think it's going to be laugh or cry. But this is going to get a little deep, stackers. But let me frame it this way, Jordan. I feel like 2024, out of all the years of my life at 56 years old, was the year of purpose for me. And I think that's because my year started off after a trip to Nepal, which is contemplative. You know, you're halfway around the world and you're thinking about, is this really what I want to do? And I do want to do a lot of that, see a lot of the world, but you also see how a lot of different people live. And you see these people and you think, what if this were me? How would my purpose be different? And then my mother-in-law died. My dad died. That strikes me as congruent with your thinking, you know, that all these things come together. I start thinking about purpose. And maybe because we collaborate so often, but also because your first book was about lessons from the dying, I think that those two kind of go together. But why for you was this a logical next step to go from lessons from the dying to let's talk living purpose?
You know, I didn't think I was going to get here. I had written the book Taking Stock in 2022, and it was all about what the dying could teach us about money and life. And one of the main premises from this book was that we have to put a sense of purpose, identity, and connections before we start building our financial framework. And indeed, we need to build that financial framework around those things. And so I'm out there marketing this book. I'm giving talks, and people are coming up to me after my talks and they're angry. And I never expected this. They're coming up to me angry. They're hot. They're sweaty. They're looking at me and they're saying, will you please stop telling me to find my purpose?
We have, by the way, a great friend in the personal finance community who you and I were on a call with him on Friday. I'll leave his name out of it, but he was fighting with you about it on Friday.
Well, I feel like purpose has become a 4-letter word for a lot of people. And I had never even thought about this until I was marketing Taking Stock. And it happened over and over again. So the first time it happened, I'm like, it's a one-off, no big deal. And it happened over and over again. I realized that there is this paradox. Purpose has been sold to us as this big, important thing that we need. And in fact, the studies do show this. If you go and look at purpose in life and look at all the studies, there are tons of studies which show that it is associated with happiness, health, and longevity. So this is super important.
Let me give you one right now. Purpose has been proven to extend your lifespan. A 2019 study that you cite using data from the project in the JAMA Network Open looked at the association of purpose in life and overall mortality among U.S. adults over the age of 50.3. I don't know why it's 50.3, but purpose was measured by a 7-item questionnaire, and individuals were given 1 of 5 purpose scores based on their answers. The participants then monitored for the next 5 years. So they've already made it past age 50. They're monitored for the next 5 years, health outcomes tracked. The study concluded that a stronger sense of purpose in life was associated not only with decreased overall mortality, but also with a lower risk of dying of heart, circulatory, and blood disorders specifically, meaning we get hit by a car, that's random, but the internal stuff, not so much.
Yeah, so we know on one side that purpose is very good for us, right? If we could take a pill, if someone said, here, take a pill, and you're going to have all these good outcomes, you would take that pill. On the other side of this, we have people like the people who would confront me at these talks and these conferences who feel a huge amount of anxiety. And in fact, other studies, Alyssa Rainey was the person who did some of the initial studies on this, show that up to 91% of people at some point have purpose anxiety. So this idea of purpose causes them distress, depression, anxiety, frustration. And so the big question is, how can it be both things? How can it be A, utterly important, and B, very anxiety provoking?
It's funny you talk about purpose anxiety. A couple of the flags that you might be suffering from that. You say job hopping is a flag that you might have purpose anxiety. Why is that?
Because people basically think that by getting this job, it's going to solve all their problems. They're going to find a sense of purpose and everything's going to be great. And then they get within this job and they're like, something doesn't feel right. I'm not exactly there. I'm not doing the thing I should do. And so what's the answer? It's to switch jobs. And so people go and they hop from job to job.
I haven't found my purpose. This is not my purpose. I got to go find my purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yes, we also do that for money, right? Some people do it because they want to keep on getting paid more. But a lot of times, and career hopping is the same thing, is where people go from career to career to career because they're searching for something and they haven't yet found it. And it feels unsettling.
It sounds like you too. Like I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Exactly. They sang about it for a reason.
I've climbed the highest mountains. Well, actually, you think about it, they totally have. I climbed the highest mountains. I've gone through the fields only to be with you, but I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Still have no idea. I have some friends like that, not just job hopping or career hopping, but I have a friend who's a mountain climber and is successful and very happy, but we always think he's climbing the next peak. We can't figure out why, but he's searching for something that we know he's not going to find. He just has this about him. You know what I mean? This feeling, I get this feeling around him that he's on this quest for the thing. And he knows it's not at the top of that next mountain. I know it's not at the top of that next mountain. He isn't going to stop.
I think this is actually one of the fundamental problems, and it actually highlights the difference between meaning and purpose, which I think people really get confused. In the book, I talk about this idea that you need both meaning and purpose to be happy. I think they're two of the key components. But people think they're the same thing, and they aren't. And it reminds me of your friend, the mountain climber, and here's why. Meaning is about our thoughts, and it's about how we think about our past. It's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's very cognitive, not action-based, thought-based, and it's about our past. People who have a good sense of meaning feel like they are enough, right? So they say, I had trauma when I was younger. I went through bad things, but I made my way through it, and I got to this place. I succeeded, and they're very optimistic and happy. Whereas people who are unhappy tend to feel like victims, like they had trauma, things didn't work out, and the reason they're lacking today is because they were victims. But what you're really talking about is having a sense of meaning kind of gives us a sense of enough. Like the happy people, like, I always was enough, and I got through this, whereas the unhappy people say, I wasn't enough. And here's where we get into people like your friend. People who don't have a good sense of enoughness and meaning think they can purpose their way to enough and happiness. They think that instead of going back in their thoughts and cognitively thinking about themselves and telling better stories, instead they move to the purpose, which is about present and future, and it's all about actions.
I'm going to climb that mountain.
If I just climb that mountain, once I get there, I'll finally feel enough and it'll be great. And of course, what happens? They don't feel enough, because purpose is not about enoughness. It's about action, and it's about present and future. And you can't purpose your way to a sense of meaning, happiness, or enough. That has to do with meaning, and you need both, because when you have a good sense of meaning and you feel enough, then you can walk forward into the present and future and purpose and feel really good about it, because then all you have to do is find things that light you up. You don't have to rely on some goal or the top of the mountain to prove that you're good enough. You can just enter every day doing this thing, this process you enjoy, and that's enough.
This is that letdown we all feel when we get to the end of the race, we get to the end of the thing, and we realize that I still showed up. Like it's still the same me.
Yeah, and so here's the funny thing. So people who love running don't feel the letdown when they reach the end of the race, but people who reach the end of the race because they're trying to prove themselves enough do. And so, Joe, for instance, I have a feeling you really love running from what I know of you. So my bet is that when you reach the goal, you're like, this is great, but it doesn't change. You still go out and run and still enjoy it because it is what it is. But people who are doing it just to reach the goal, they'll find that they spend a lot of time doing things they don't like. So 90% of your time you're spent doing things you don't enjoy to get to those few minutes or hours where you're really rejoicing in the goal. And then it dissipates and you're like, now I have to hit the next goal.
It is so funny. My son loved running at first when he was young, and then he got to the point that he really liked winning. And when he stopped winning, when running got hard as he got a little bit older and other kids started maturing, he got incredibly frustrated. My daughter was kicking people's ass while she was running. She didn't care. And it's interesting, just the difference between those two things. I want to clarify this, not just for you, Jordan, but for all of our stackers. I don't enjoy running. I enjoy eating a lot.
And that allows you
That's what
to.
I like. Yes. And I think about that. So one definitely leads to the other. There's one more thing you say, which is another red flag around purpose anxiety, and that is imposter syndrome. How is imposter syndrome a flag about purpose anxiety?
Oh, I think a lot of people start doing something new, and then what they tell you is, I'm afraid that I'm not at the level that I can do this. I'm not good enough. I'm doing something and I'm too much of a novice. But I think the bigger question also becomes, is this something I really want to do? Is this purposeful? Does this fill me up? And so I think often people use the excuse of, am I good enough to do this? But what they're really saying is, am I faking this because it feels purposeful? Or is this what I really want to do with myself?
So you're saying if you experience imposter syndrome, your head just might not even be in the right place.
Yeah, you might be doing the wrong thing, and it might not feel like it fits because it's not actually what lights you up.
It's interesting because when I've given people advice before, podcasters specifically, that tell me they feel like an imposter as they're on the microphone, my answer to that always is, are you focused on you and your brilliance, or are you focused on helping your audience? If you focus on helping your audience, I don't think you're going to suffer imposter syndrome. If you focus on how brilliant you're going to be on the microphone, then maybe.
And a big question about it too is, so when I first started podcasting, and even now still, I often feel that rush of excitement, adrenaline, and even fear that I won't show up when I come to the microphone. But I realize for me, that's excitement. It feels like anxiety or fear or panic. But what it really is I want to kill this so bad. And I'm so interested in having this conversation that I've now reframed that. And so if that's you, if that imposter syndrome is, I care so deeply about this that I want to do it well, then it probably isn't purpose anxiety. But if it's, I don't belong here and this doesn't feel right and I feel like I'm being a fake, it may just be purpose anxiety.
You begin, you know how much I love stories. Heck, you love stories. We bond over that.
I love stories, yes.
Let's tell some stories. You start off with a great story from Julia Child, which, speaking of food, one of my favorite. Anytime we can talk about a chef, I'm like, I'm in. That's a good place to start. Tell us about Julia Child.
Well, she is a great example of purpose. She had a long, storied career before she even discovered food. I mean, she worked for the CIA, making this crazy concoction that they were actually trying to feed to sharks so that they wouldn't eventually attack service members. And so that was as close to cooking as she got. And she was kind of adrift. She tried writing a book. It didn't work. And she was traveling with her husband who worked in the Foreign Service. She ends up in France. She eats this French cuisine and, like a bolt of lightning, realizes, I want more of this in my life. Right?
Or in my tummy. Or my tummy.
Yes, or
both.
whatever it was. And that became purpose for her. But funny enough, it wasn't, I want to write a life-changing book about this. It wasn't, I want to be on TV about this. It was, this lights up my soul. And so she went and pursued that. And she went to the Cordon Bleu and actually failed her first test. She started writing what would be one of the most famous cooking books out there. And it took her 10 full years. But she loved it. And you hear this in her writing, you see it in the documentaries about her. She loved every moment about it. And that's really the distinction I try to make in this book. This idea of doing things that light you up and you love, regardless of some big outsized goal that you feel you should choose for yourself. And so I use the term little p purpose and big P purpose, but what I'm really talking about is process-oriented purpose, doing things we love doing. And she's a great example of someone who had huge impact and legacy, but that was never really her plan. Her plan was to pursue this thing that she loved, that she wanted to spend her days being involved with. But because she was intentional, because she loved it, it lit her up. It naturally connected her to other people. She formed communities. She made partnerships. Eventually, she changed the world. But I don't even think that was ever her plan. And I think that's a great template for what purpose should look like in the rest of our lives.
You have always bristled when I've used words about thinking of chasing your legacy, like thinking about your legacy. It's almost like you're pressing the buzzer like, nope.
Well, here's the thing. I think legacy and impact are important, but I think when we shoot for legacy and impact, we place these big, audacious goals in front of us. And we often choose things that are really hard to reach. Often we don't have agency. And I blame a lot for this. I think it's human nature, but I think also social media and marketing, all of this teaches us that if you live in America, if you can think it, you can achieve it, right? So it's not that I should do well financially, it's that I should be a billionaire. It's not that I should run for the local school board, it's that I should be president of the United States. It's not that I should take flying lessons, I should be a NASA astronaut. And the problem with these really big, audacious goals that we think are going to leave a big, audacious legacy is that many times we don't actually have agency to achieve them. I hate to tell you, but just because you can think something doesn't mean you can achieve it. In fact, for a lot of these very difficult things, you have to be the right person at the right time, saying the right things, have the right genetics, and actually be really lucky. And so if you set your vision of happiness, purpose, and impact and legacy on these really big things that are hard to attain, you're most likely going to be frustrated. You're going to have purpose anxiety because you're going to think that this thing is my purpose and I keep banging my head against the wall and I can't reach it. Whereas I think a better thing to do is to focus on things we have real agency over. If you start doing things that you enjoy the process of doing, in the same manner, it will light you up. And because it lights you up, it will attract other people to you. And I believe that's where real impact and legacy lies. And not only impact and legacy, but a lot of studies show that real happiness lies in those interpersonal connections. It's when we affect the people around us that impact and legacy can continue, sometimes for generations and hundreds of miles away from where you started.
I feel like we start off on the wrong foot. I saw a very disturbing statistic this summer that 26% of American high schoolers, the number one thing they want to be when they, quote, grow up is an influencer.
Yeah.
And then the gentleman that was telling us this story said, then when I see some of these people, and he goes and he talks to high schools and he starts telling them what it really means to be an influencer, the sustainable business, the behind the scenes, the scripting, the work, the care that it takes. I don't want that. I don't want any of that. I want to go viral. My goal is just viral.
I think the problem is society wants us to co-opt someone else's version of purpose. And often the people who really want us to do this are people who have something to gain from us. So influencers want you to have the six-pack abs. They want you to travel to all these different countries. They want you to run the 8-figure business because they want to sell you something, or they want you to follow them so they can sell things to marketers and advertisers. And marketing and advertising want to sell you all these beautiful images of the person you could be so that you will buy their product. But it's not just social media influencers and marketers. It's actually our families and parents and society tell us that you need to be a doctor or a CPA or a lawyer. We grow up thinking that when we are little kids, especially before we get into phones, we think that we can go out, spend the day doing anything we choose and have a ball, and that's fine. And so little kids understand purpose. They get involved with things. You and I have talked about flow and play. Little kids understand play. And so they get into a flow state by doing things they feel are purposeful, and they don't care about the goal. They don't care about the outcome. They don't care about making a living. But something happens as we grow older and fall prey to all these other influences like social media and marketing and even society's expectations. And we put all that joyful stuff aside and decide that we need to do things that get us to that career, that make us that money. I believe some of that is necessary because there's a time in life you do have to become serious and start thinking about planning what your future is going to look like. For many of us, those things don't fill us up. And so we put aside this idea of little p purpose, doing things we enjoy the process of doing because they fill us up, and instead replace it with very goal-oriented purpose. And again, I think that's fine as we're growing up and building a career and building families and those kind of things, but they don't necessarily always light us up. And I think eventually we pay the price for that.
It's funny. You'll see this on even week to week, day to day, I think, in our everyday life. Like, as you know, you and I love what we do here. We love this discussion. I told you how much I was excited about having this discussion, and now I'm in it and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. But last week, as we record this, I just got home from FinCon. FinCon is about the business of doing what we do, right? And so from Sunday through about 2:30 in the afternoon, Wednesday, I was hardcore Joe Saul-Sehy businessman. And I can't tell you, Jordan, how hard I hit the wall Wednesday afternoon. And then Thursday, I was in ADD land. I just could not stay focused. And thank goodness that I have enough control over my schedule that I made sure that I was fully booked up. So I would just go from meeting to meeting to meeting. I didn't have to think. It's like, if you've got ADD, that's the best thing to do. Just make it so you don't have to think. But you know what I figured out on Friday? I figured out on Friday that what was missing was the little P purpose piece of this that I love, which is Joe, the creative dude. I had no Joe creative dude for all of FinCon, no Joe creative dude through the next several days. And it was like my creative side going, no, this crap's, who cares about the business? You should be having these discussions, be having fun. You should be, writing scripts and doing the stuff that really lights you up. So it may not crash your career, but it still can crash your week. You and I are really bridging on, and I know you want to answer that, but I think you're going to answer that more fully with what I want you to do next, because we're diving into this next area that I want to pivot to. But the way we get there, I think, Jordan, is through another great story. And this story is the story of your friend Roman. Tell me who Roman is. How did you meet this guy, and what a character he seems to be?
Roman is a guy who changed my life, and I don't think he ever meant to. So Roman,
that's what you say about me, isn't it?
All the time. Joe and Roman. I put them right next to each other in the book. Right. Roman was a football player in high school. He blew out his knee, couldn't play anymore. Eventually, he decided he didn't want to go to college, and he was going to run his father's antique store. He eventually took it over. And in that antique store, basically, he would refinish furniture, things like that, and then sell it in his shop. And one day he came across an armoire, and he opened up one of the doors and found a bunch of baseball cards, didn't know what to do with them, called the guy who sold him the armoire. The guy said, I don't want them. So he put them on his desk, didn't think about it. But a few days later, a woman walked in with her snarky teenager, and the teenager took a look at the baseball cards, threw them on the counter and said, I'll give you $10 for everything. Roman was like, great. I wasn't going to do anything with them anyway. Teenager gives him the $10, spreads them out, points to 2 or 3 cards and say, these alone are worth $100
each.
The whole total, like these three cards are worth $100.
But still, so, yes.
Yeah, it was
10x.
Instead of being angry, Roman was enthralled. And just like Julia Childs, we talked about before, he felt this inkling, this beckoning that something important was happening here. And so he got excited by baseball cards. He decided he wanted to sell baseball cards in his antique store. He hired the snarky teenager right there, right then. And then he had to build a life of purpose around this. So he's like, I have this inkling. There's this thing that feels purposeful to me. But then he had to learn about baseball cards. He had to stock them. He had to start marketing them to people. But over the years, he did that. And in fact, ended up selling more baseball cards than antiques, although that was never his plan. He just really enjoyed this.
You said this antique store is full of baseball card aficionados.
Yeah. And what happened is he created a community of kids like me. Now, at that time, my father had died when I was 7. I had a learning disability. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have a community. I didn't have a place to be on Saturday afternoons, but all of a sudden I did. And I would go into Roman's store and there would be friends there. And if I had a bad day, he'd give me a free pack of baseball cards and we'd open it. And many, many kids like me found a community there. And we thrived. We eventually grew up and left, and we left his store with a confidence that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And some of us became doctors. I'm sure some of us became lawyers. I'm sure some of us sold stuff like he did. Roman actually got cancer and had to close up his antique store and eventually died. But 30 years later, I'm still talking about Roman. And the amazing thing is, he never set out to change my life. He never set out actually even to start a community. He found this thing that lit him up, this little P purpose, and he pursued it. And it led to impact and legacy that's still being felt today. And interestingly enough, I like to contrast this with Mickey Mantle. See, Mickey Mantle was a baseball player I loved, and I loved collecting his cards. But 30 years later, Mickey Mantle didn't do anything for my life. And in fact, if I had modeled myself after Mickey Mantle and decided I wanted to be just like Mickey Mantle, the likelihood is I would never have. I would have never made it to Major League Baseball. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't good enough at it. The coaches in my area weren't the all-star coaches you need. If I had tried to become Mickey Mantle, if that was my sense of purpose, instead of the little p purpose of learning from Roman, if it was big p purpose, I wanted to become a baseball player, I would have had purpose anxiety. I would have been frustrated. I would have felt like I never reached my dreams. And so I really took a lot from Roman and his version of purpose. And I think there are a lot of us out there in the world today practicing our own version of purpose because he gave us permission and he gave us a model of what it looks like to be lit up by something you love.
What I love about that story, and also the connection to your story, my story, Julia Child's story, what always freaked me out about purpose, and I remember this when it came to charitable giving, I got really frustrated with the fact that I thought that part of my purpose was charitable giving, right? That I need to give back. I worked with these very powerful people when I was a financial planner, and they all gave back to their communities. And I saw that this was a part of their mission. I could feel that it wasn't just for marketing purposes or to tell people, hey, look at how cool I am. Although I did meet some of those people. For the most part, these were some of the best people I ever met. Just amazing. And they were successful because they were such givers. And I didn't have that. I didn't feel anything. I didn't have this, oh, I need to give a bunch of money or give a bunch of time, give a bunch of whatever to this cause. And then I decided, I actually got some good coaching that told me this, that maybe it doesn't start there. And this seems to be what you're saying, Jordan. Maybe it doesn't start there. Maybe it starts with just getting your hands elbow deep in some issue and give yourself the courage to have the purpose find you. And so I just picked one. I picked the Arthritis Foundation because my mom has arthritis, and a client of mine was the head of the Arthritis Foundation. I didn't know crap about arthritis. 6 months later, Jordan, I was the biggest advocate for more research in the area of arthritis, especially juvenile arthritis, because when I actually let my legs do the walking instead of sitting around worrying about what the hell's my purpose, I felt like it found me. I think that's what you're saying.
In fact, I would change the wording a little bit. I don't think we really find purpose. I think we find these things we have inklings or beckonings towards. So for Roman, it was baseball cards. For Julia Childs, it was French cooking. So I think we find these inklings and beckonings, but what we really do is we build or create a life of purpose. And so the key here is, and I think this is where people get things wrong, if you find what lights you up, you are going to impact and change the world and help other people. You are going to shine brightly, and like a moth to the flame, people are going to be attracted to you. People who want to collaborate, people who know things so want to teach you, people who need to learn things so they want you to teach them. And that's that interconnectedness. I mean, Joe, you and I are a great example. You and I are both lit up by podcasting, by creating, by getting involved in what to me was little p purpose, which was podcasting. I eventually attracted to meet people like you, right? And you said, aha, that guy, I have something I can teach to. And because you and I both dug the same thing, and you saw me and you're like, oh, he's lit up by this, I want to get involved in that. And I saw the same in you, and you're like, oh, he loves teaching this thing, and this is something he's really good at. But you and I now can collaborate together and create things that help people. So it's not just about me and you. It sounds selfish in the beginning. It's like little p purpose. Find what you enjoy the process of and what lights you up. It's all about you. But in the end, you create something much bigger than you that can go out there and change the world. And I think that's the basis of all of this. It's the cheat code. It's the easy way, as opposed to what most people do is create these big audacious plans and then chase most of their life doing things they don't like doing in order to get there.
Well, I'm glad you said that you brought that up, because there's another piece that you draw attention to that I think we need to shine a light on, which is this idea of permanence. You make a big point that what lights you up today, I think part of the reason people get anxiety is we think this has to be forever.
Yeah.
This has to be my thing forever. And you go, no. It seems for me Well, we see this with you. I feel like you used to really get lit up by your work as a physician. There are pieces of it that light you up now, but not like it used to. And now you're moving on to other things that light you up. Like, I feel like part of your mission here too is to give people permission to go, you know what? This can be little p and it doesn't have to be forever.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking abundance here. And this again is the difference between little p and big P. Big P purpose is kind of scarcity mindset oriented. It's either like I find my purpose in life is good, or I don't find my purpose and all is lost. I either change the world or I don't. I either get to the top of the mountain or I fail somewhere in between. But little p purpose is much more abundant, which means we can find purpose in a million different things. And some of those things might be lifelong. So being a physician, for me, that sense of purpose lit me up until a certain age. And then I realized that it didn't fit me anymore. But a piece of it, a small piece of it, hospice work, might be lifelong. Whereas podcasting has now become a huge part of my purpose. Will it last forever? I don't know. But I give myself permission to do it as long as I love the process of doing it.
But the cool thing is that, this might have been where you were going. But the cool thing is you're also giving yourself permission to go, you know what? I'm done.
It's not filling me up anymore. And if it gets to that point, and here's what I think really is the lesson, and I can't say this any more clear. I know from being a physician, from seeing people die, I know that we have a set period of time in this world. Yes, we can do things like exercise and not
spoiler
smoke.
alert.
Yeah, we can exercise and not smoke and wear seatbelts, and we might have slightly more time than if we didn't do these things. But you have a set period of time on this earth, and you can't buy it, you can't sell it, you can't trade it, you can't do anything but control the activities you're involved in as time passes. And so I like to look at these as time slots. Call it days, weeks, months, years, hours, whatever you like to call your time slot. Winning the game is filling those time slots with as many things as you love and getting rid of as many things as you loathe. So what do you love? I call it little p purpose. It's doing the thing that puts you in flow, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel like life has meaning and that you're impacting people and making connections. And so it behooves us to constantly reevaluate, to look at our calendar and reevaluate the calculus of how many hours are we spending doing things we don't like and how many hours are we spending things we do like. And so little p purpose is abundant and it's changeable. And you can have one or many versions of it. That version can feel like it's changing the world, but it doesn't have to. And you can switch from time to time as long as you're looking at your calendar and you're progressively getting better. So when you're 25 years old, you might spend more time doing things like work that you don't love in service of a later you, or making money, or doing whatever you need to do. But the older you get, you want that calendar to get better and better every year. Every year, you want it to be filled with more that you love and less that you loathe. And the way we do this is we develop a sense of love for doing things that light us up. We think about these inklings, these beckonings, what I call purpose anchors, and then we actively build a life of purpose around them. And it's only as good as it serves you, and it's fine to pivot the minute it stops serving you.
Jordan's latest project is called The Purpose Code: How to Unlock Meaning, Maximize Happiness, and Leave a Lasting Legacy. And Doc G, it's available everywhere. Jordan, man, thank you so much for being our mentor today. I super appreciate this. I appreciate this work. I appreciate all your work, and obviously appreciate your collaboration on all of our projects.
It has been a blast not only working with you, but having the privilege of being your guest today.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. And have you ever wondered about some of those unexplainable things in life? We've all heard about the Kennedy-Lincoln coincidences, haven't we? For those people who've locked themselves off social media, first, congrats. And second, listen to these facts. It's going to blow you away. First, Lincoln and Kennedy both have 7 letters in their names. Second, both were elected to Congress in a year that ended in 46. Third, both of their assassins were born in the same year, had 3 names, comprised of exactly 15 letters. I mean, and the list just keeps going on and on. Well, listen to this one I discovered just today. Elvis Presley also had some weird coincidences, and they stem from today's date. Get this, Presley was both divorced on this date and born on this date. I mean, what are the odds? How could anybody have seen that coming? Like everything, it's a mystery. Science can't explain it. One mystery will end today, though, the answer to today's trivia question. What woman was a star on the film The Naked Gun and TV show Dallas, was the woman Presley divorced, who also later was the person most responsible for growing the family fortune after Elvis died? I'll be back right after I tie up these blue suede shoes. I know Elvis wasn't the first one to sing that song. I just have to tie him up, all right? Why does everything have to be a tie-in? You're thinking too much. Hey there, Stackers. I'm Jailhouse Rocker and the guy who does it his way, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Today, we're commemorating the weird coincidence that Elvis Presley was both born today and divorced today from a woman who later would go on to grow the Presley fortune after the singer's death. What actress are we referring to? Of course, it was none other than Priscilla Presley. And now, let's get back to two guys who will never have a little less conversation, Joe and OG.
Oh, I see what you did there, Doug. I see what you did there.
A little less talk, a little more conversation.
Oh, boy.
By the way, OG, nice job there, too, man. What's that?
It's a side gig for me.
I would like to point out to the Department of Corrections that I doubt that the assassins for both of the presidents, I doubt that they were both born the same year.
I know.
That
It was a
was what
little
was-
grammatical writing error that I just figured people are going to understand this. But thank you for pointing it out.
Well, they're both born in a decade, a century later.
Right. But like the same year in their respective centuries.
Yes.
So not the same year.
But yeah.
By the way, Priscilla Presley didn't grow Elvis's fortune by a little. Listen to this. The fortune when Elvis passed away was $5 million.
That was a trivia question one time, a long time ago, I remember.
It was. Yep.
Yeah, valued
That's right.
valued recently at $500 million.
Wow.
And that's all due to Priscilla Presley and, of course, the team that did that professionally under her leadership and management. Just phenomenal. Speaking of phenomenal, OG, you know how much pushback we always get.
Thank you.
And Doc G always gets when
Keep talking. Joe, say it fast. He might not be able to squeeze that in.
Damn it. His ability to misinterpret. The amount of pushback that Doc G gets, and frankly, we get whenever we talk about purpose, is big. I think Jordan is onto this. Talking about purpose scares the hell out of people, OG. It's like, oh man, I'm getting close to retirement. I don't know what my purpose is. It just totally freaks people out. So I love this idea about focusing on, quote, little p. Focus on what are those things that light you up? Let's do more of those.
Kind of ties in a little bit nicely to what Jen and Jill were talking about, just kind of working on the things that find excitement. And what did you like about that? Not what did you do, but what did you like about that thing that you did? And then it becomes a little bit easier to find that enjoyment or that perspective in other things, like Doc G's talking about here, that can lead you down the path of discovery, basically, as opposed to like just going, well, I can't possibly imagine what this big giant thing might be for me, so therefore I'm not going to deal with it. It's like, well, yeah, but you've had things in your life that you liked. Go find the things that you liked and try to recreate that in other aspects.
There's a friend of mine, OG, to your point, that kind of had the Jen experience of she realized that she really liked hanging out with her friends. It wasn't going to the restaurant. It was, I like hanging out with my friends and socializing that I liked. And a couple of her friends belonged to a local nonprofit in the town that they lived in. And so they began then volunteering at this nonprofit. Really, in the beginning, it was less about the nonprofit as it was about just spending more time with this community. Before she knew it, she's actively involved and she's very passionate about this thing. And so Big P kind of finds her by just, being around these friends in this community lights me up. And hey, if we're doing something that helps other people too, that's great too. Like that's fantastic. Right. Super way to combine the two. Let's move on to our headline.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Today's headline comes to us from USA Today and is written by Celine Martin. But of course, this information you can find all over the place because tax brackets are out, of course, for 2025. And the amount you can save has been revealed. Of course, I'm talking about saving into things like Roth IRAs, your 401k, 457, 403b. Those numbers are all published. Everybody is, of course, now turning to preparing your taxes in 2025. And there are going to be adjustments in more than 60 tax provisions. But of course, the two big ones we're focused on here at Stacking Benjamins are, number one, the changes to the tax brackets. And then number two is, of course, the amount that you can save into these different places. How important is it, OG? We'll link to these actual numbers. I'm not going to read these. I'm not going to read these tables. Here's the tax table. Like, that's good audio.
From $0 to $12,105 if you're single.
I'll link to this on our show notes so you can get all this great information. OG, what I really want to focus on is, what is it about the tax brackets you think we really need to know? Like, just conceptually, what do we need to know about tax brackets that either A, people don't think about enough, or B, people just plain might get wrong?
Well, I think there's two things here. Firstly maybe there's even more. The first thing that comes to mind is the concept of marginal rates. And for some reason, we just haven't quite grasped this yet as a society. It's like, I don't want to earn this much because then I'll be in the 32% bracket. It's like, okay, but that's okay. I mean, it's better to have more than not more in most cases. And by the way, it's marginal. So what that means is that it's just that extra dollar that goes into that bracket. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I made an extra $5, I'm in the 12% bracket, or I'm in the 30%, like whatever that is, it's just that extra dollar that's taxed at that higher rate, not all the rest of the money. And I think for some reason we kind of miss out on that. That's probably the first realization that I think would be helpful. The second thing around savings and investing is, it doesn't take a lot of time, but I believe if you haven't sat down and done the math on your saving, let's say that you're maxing out your 401k, or you're going to max out your Roth this year, it requires you to make a little bit of a change to get that number evenly distributed. If that's your plan, if your plan is, I'm going to put the same amount in every paycheck to get there, or the same amount every month to get to my Roth max or whatever, you have to make that change to account for the fact that it's gone up a little bit. It went up with IRA contributions. It went up with your 401k. It went up with your HSA by a little bit. So like all of these require like little tweaks, unless your income is so high that you can put a percentage in and still max it out. But in most cases, you still want to spread it out throughout the whole year, unless your company is for sure doing a what's called a true up in your 401k. Because a lot of companies, if you stop putting money in, they stop putting money in. So if you're like, I got a big bonus in February, I'm going to take all that money and put it in my 401k right now. If your company doesn't do a true up at the end of the year, you're going to miss out on all that contribution that you would have gotten had you distributed it evenly throughout the year. So I think it just takes a little bit of time so there's not a surprise, at the end of the year. But statistically, if you do have the cash, and I know a lot of people get excited about this, which is cool. If you do have the cash, you can do all the money in your Roth IRA right now. You can put all the money in your HSA right now. You can put all the money in your 401k right now if your company does that calculation, like I mentioned. And statistically, you're still dollar cost averaging. You're just doing it on an annual basis, not on a weekly or monthly basis. So don't let that dissuade you. And, you get the whole year of that money invested, which in theory makes it worth more. I like the idea of simplicity. Joe, you and I have a friend who on the first of every year pays all of his bills in advance for a year.
Wow.
Like he sits down and goes, I know that I paid the electrical company last year $500 a month. I paid him $6,000. I'm writing them a check today for $6,000. So I don't have to, there's no mental energy expended in doing that. And I know a lot of people are going, wait a second, that's ridiculous. Letting the water company or letting the, electrical company or letting your mortgage, he doesn't have a mortgage, but you get the idea. Letting all these places hold on to your money for a year. And in his mind, the stress of not having to pay bills for the whole year is way better than the stress of oh my gosh, I'm going to lose out on $600 of interest. So if you can simplify things, if you can make it from a decision standpoint, I think that's super helpful. Back to the taxes. People get stressed out about taxes. Don't. It's just a calculation. I think the best time to do your tax calculation is going to be in the third quarter. Wait for the year to kind of start getting going. Now's not the time to, you can do it, but I wouldn't put a lot of energy in trying to plan your tax strategy for 2025 right now. Let the year happen. Get into July, get into August, see where you're at, see how your job situation looks like. Maybe you got a pay raise, maybe you got a bonus. You can sit down on the IRS website and do some calculations. It still gives you 5 or 6 months to catch up. if you're a little behind. But that's how I think about it anyway. Knock out the big decisions that you can do once. Don't worry about marginal brackets, and do an in-depth calculation maybe 1st of August.
Your bias when it comes to saving, and we'll get to how savings rates have changed in 2025, because they have, not in every type of account, but they have in some, that I think is going to excite some of our stackers. But is your bias toward pre-tax or the Roth, just generally?
Yeah. Yep. That is my bias. Correct. My bias is yes.
Your bias is all the above.
My bias is saving. I mean, here's the thing. There's no way to predict what the future tax rates are going to be. And for the last 25 years...
Well, that's why my bias is toward the Roth, OG, is just that one statement right there.
I got it. I understand that completely. And I would also submit to you, for the last 25 years, we've been told that the economy and there's obligations and Social Security is going to force more taxation, blah, 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 blah. I don't know this for a fact, and somebody can go back and fact check this. I don't know that tax rates have manifestly changed in the last 25 years that I've been doing this. Do you think that they have? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they have. They definitely ebb and flow, and there's good, depending on whose, administration it is. But I don't know that we're sitting here staring down the barrel of a 50% tax rate at some point in time, because they've been saying it for 25 years. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but there's some reasons to do pre-tax. For example, your FAFSA contributions, if you have to do a FAFSA, pre-tax 401k contributions help you on the FAFSA. Roth 401k contributions do not. I don't know why. It seems pretty stupid to me, but
maybe it's because with the Roth, you can get at that money. So they're saying, hey, this money's gettable.
I mean, everything's gettable, I suppose, at some level. Anyways, I think there's more to it between pre-tax and Roth than that. And what I prefer to see is a pretty reasonable distribution between the 3 different buckets, right? Pre-tax money, after-tax money, and Roth money, tax-free money. And the more you have in an evenly distributed bucket, the more that you can arbitrage that when it comes time to take that money out. See, the big play with pre-tax and Roth is, if I can pay taxes today, it's basically the timing of the taxation, right? If I can say with a high degree of certainty that I'm going to be able to take this money and pay a lower tax rate in the future, or I'm going to pay a low tax rate today as opposed to the future, that's the gamble that you're making. But if you have some flexibility there, let's say that you have a bunch of money in pre-tax, a bunch of money in Roth, and a bunch of money in after-tax. Now, when it comes time for your distribution in retirement, you can play the game of going, oh, well, I'm going to take some of my money from this bucket at 12%. I'm going to guarantee that I'm getting the low tax rate on this, versus trying to guess on what's going to happen. So given the opportunity, I'd probably diversify it to make sure that we've got some balance. But you'll be plenty wealthy with $10 million in your IRA and $10 million in your Roth. Nobody's going to complain about either of those things.
The thing I like about that argument is the fact that I think a lot of people play this game, not really a game, but they think about this as if it's an either or discussion. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be and, right? You look at the nature of improv, and how improv is yes and this. And the fact that I think that you can do both surprises a lot of people. And this isn't just around IRA contributions, 401k contributions, TSP, whatever it might be. This is around a lot of financial decisions in life. The answer can be and.
Well, think about the person who's planning an earlier retirement, let's say in their mid-50s, and you're 45 today, and you're saying, well, isn't it better to put money in my 401k and just take it out of my paycheck? It's like, well, maybe for you, it would be better to have a little bit more money after tax, because you're going to need some flexibility in your distribution timing for the first 8-10 years of retirement. Or you're planning on taking Social Security at 70, not at 62 when you retire, and you're going to need 8 years of living expenses. It's a very personal decision in terms of how you map it out. And the interesting thing about financial planning, of course, is that just because you did it right today, life's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be changes that happen in the next 5 or 10 years, whether it's tax rate changes or your personal situation or the economy or whatever. So it's an ongoing debate and change. We've changed our contributions in our life from pre-tax to Roth and back and forth year after year, largely just to kind of keep that balance the way that I want it, so that I've got the flexibility when it comes time for distribution. And for the first 20 years of my life, I didn't have an option for a 401k, a Roth 401k. So it was like literally trying to play catch up. And now that we've kind of caught up again, now I'm just trying to balance it out, because the employer matching contributions are traditional or pre-tax. So you know what I mean? Like, we change it year to year, and there's no right or wrong answer to any of this. If you save $70,000 a year in your accounts, if you're married and you can both participate in 401ks and HSAs and Roths. It's like, it doesn't much matter where the money goes as long as it's invested. You'll be fine.
If you want to see the tax control triangle that OG is referencing and keeping some balance in the different types of accounts that you have, you'll find that at stackingbenjamins.com/tax triangle. And we have that there and it's free. So take advantage of that resource if you're still a little confused about how that works. But it very much is, once you grasp that we're looking at taking a bird in the hand today and giving yourself flexibility for the future, is really what that tax control triangle is all about. More good news, by the way, for people with a 401k, a 403b, TSP, most of the 457 plans, most of the plans out there historically, last year in 2024, allowed you to put in $23,000. Those plans went up at the beginning of 2025. You can now put in $23,500. So, OG, to your point, you just want to change your automatic investments if you can afford to do that and put the max in. You've got an extra $500 this year. Now, that's not the case, though, for IRAs. IRAs were $7,000 last year, and they stayed the same this year.
Dun.
Yeah. Why one went up and the other didn't, OG, is beyond me. There's some calculation going on that might be above my pay grade.
You think that somebody did some calculations on that? Oh, that's nice.
Wait, you think they actually thought about it? Does that deserve a whoops? One of those?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Head to our show notes and we'll have all of these numbers for you. stackingbenjamins.com. And scroll down to the show notes for today's show and you will see all of the numbers when it comes to this year's tax brackets and saving opportunities. We'll have all those for you. And not only that, but wait, there's more. OG's firm has put together a list of all the changes, basically all the important tax information you need to know, OG.
Yeah, we'll send this to anybody that's on the 201. So if you don't get the 201, sign up for it and we'll send it to everybody. But it's basically all the stuff that you're just talking about, Joe. The tax brackets, the standard deduction information, Social Security information, Medicare premiums and IRMA surcharges and capital gains tax rates and RMD tables and catch-up contribution, like all of the data in terms of where are these numbers at. It's the 2025 important numbers PDF. So 2-pager, we'll send it to you. Just sign up for 201. We'll send it in an email.
We're going to send it on Friday. So if you're listening to this before Friday, sign up for the 201, stackingbenjamins.com/201 for that special edition. And if you're listening to this after Friday, just send me an email, joe@stackingbenjamins.com, and I'll make sure that we get it to you as soon as you write to us. So happy to do that. Let's meander out on to the back porch because we've got a couple things here. Number one is the book club, which is a small group of people working through the lessons in my book Stacked that a couple years ago CNN said was the #1 personal finance book to read. These are a list of achievements where you're building your financial plan and you work with me and a small group of people over 10 weeks, live 90-minute sessions to achieve your financial goals, get your financial plan in order for 2025 at stackingbenjamins.com/book club. We call it the book club because we're diving into the book. It's not for everybody. It is definitely a small group. By the way, the number of testimonials we received from the people that went through it last year, just incredible. This is what people said that went through last year's book club. We've looked at different aspects of our finances for a long time, but never took a comprehensive view of things and made sure we had all our bases covered. Walking through this hysterically funny and informative book with the author himself was incredibly meaningful. The lessons were for us individually. We got coached directly and we had a support group to cheer us on. It was the best way to make a positive and lasting change. Can't recommend it enough. Another person said I was skeptical if this class would be helpful to me or not, but decided to give it a try. Turned out to be a great decision. I'm improving my budgeting skills, my mindset, but the best part was the part on investing. I think the changes I made will really be helpful down the road as I'm better diversified and have lowered my fees too, ready for whatever financial storm headed my way. Those are just a couple of them. It's stackingbenjamins.com/book club. We're going to get going at the end of the month, so sign up before all the places are gone. That's, I think, what I had. Doug, we got anything else in the back porch? I don't think we do this week.
Yeah, actually, Joe, we do. First of all, I got to say, under the errors and omissions section of our magazine, we've got to say that in our last episode, we talked and thanked Nate Banner for pointing out the name of the sci-fi movie called In Time. But since has been brought to our attention that 25 hours prior to Nate saying that in the basement, another great basement dweller, Eric Lee, pointed out that if anyone's curious about the movie OG referenced, it's called In Time. And then he used AI. He had to, kick it up a notch. He used AI to summarize it. It's a movie where people literally have a clock on their arm counting down their lifespan, and time is used as currency. Essentially, you can spend your remaining life to buy things.
Yeah, nice job, Eric. We gave half credit there, Doug.
Right.
But not to Eric.
So thanks, Eric, and apologies. But we also had some great reviews. We have, I think, one reviewer very likely plays for the Detroit Lions because his name is JMO. JMO Fauchot. But I think it's pretty clear that's a star receiver.
Probably.
Or
I bet we get lots of
Detroit Lions.
Professional people listening to the show.
Yeah, I mean, in between all of the intense workouts that Dan Campbell is giving them, he apparently listens to us, and he says Stacking Benjamins gives the right amount of life and financial advice whilst, he used the word whilst, peppering in a fair and equitable amount of dad humor. I've been listening for 6+ years and will continue to do so. I often refer to this podcast when chatting with others regarding financial decisions or for recommendations on movies, TV shows, and books. Keep up the fine work.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a good one. And so appreciate that, JMO. Please put a lot of stickum on your hands, on your receiving gloves, because these games coming up are pretty important, man.
Well, that game actually is already over. I'm sure we won, but
he's talking about the playoff.
Well, you're right.
We still got the Super Bowl coming.
Oh, good point.
Playoffs.
There are other games.
Right. And so that I was pretty pleased. I like that he pointed out the dad humor, because if you're new listening to us and you've gotten to this part of the show and haven't realized it yet, we are your easy entree point into personal finance. This can be super intimidating topic, right? And people don't want to talk about their personal finance or even start diving into it because we've somehow been trained to think this is painful. And our goal here is to make the humor painful, not the personal finance with dad humor. So thanks for pointing that out, JMO.
I think we're as valuable, Doug, as waiters. I was thinking over the holidays just how valuable waiters are, like at restaurants.
Interesting.
Oh, I was thinking about the stuff that you wear in the lake when you go fishing.
When I'm fishing.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe. But I think restaurant waiters, I think they bring a lot to the table.
Oh, for God's sakes, how did we walk right into that?
I tried to get us out of it. Honestly,
God.
Did you see what I did there? I knew it was coming, and I tried to derail it, and I was like, guys, no, don't do it.
No. Wait, apply the brakes.
Is it time that we move on? Let's do the other reviews next week because we got to go.
Okay.
Thank you so much, by the way, for your reviews. Thank you for the gift of your time. I know your time is valuable, and we want to make sure you get all the good dad jokes like that one. All right, Doug, when we finish us off on a strong note, what should we have learned on today's Epic Wednesday episode?
Well, Joe, here's what we should have learned today. First, take some advice from Dr. Jordan Grumet. Looking for your big P purpose in life? Relax. By focusing on little p purpose, you're much more likely to enjoy your life, make meaningful connections, and maybe find some big P purpose along the way. Second, tax brackets? Think about optimizing for flexibility in your plan, not to squeeze every last cent out of the tax man's pocket this year. Future you will thank you. But the big lesson? Want a bigger, better 25? Come to Texarkana and buy your buddy Doug some Sizzler.
Oh, God.
That's probably, I mean, this is just what all the experts are saying. It's probably
a big takeaway.
It's probably the gift that keeps on giving. And if you think about it, really, I mean, it's got a good chance of becoming your big P, don't you think? Thanks to Doc G for stopping by. You'll find his book, The Purpose Code, wherever books are sold. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2024, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh, yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
Oh, gee, we're going to talk about gifts? Gifts you got the kids?
So I don't know how long we've been doing this, but for our kids, we've always had something, I don't want to say a gag, but some sort of, whether it's the gift that they really wanted that's just not under the tree, but it's in a back bedroom somewhere or
Parked in the driveway with a big red bow on it.
Yeah, definitely not that ever. But
how can you park a plane there, Doug?
Hold on. I do have a funny joke coming for my son. So we've already set this up. So Alex, my oldest, is 17. He'll be 18. And then William is going to start driving. And so on William's birthday, I'm going to rent a badass convertible and put a bow on it out front.
Oh, that's horrible.
Oh, that is awful.
No. So hold on. No. Let me be clear. William's in on it. So the 16-year-old's in on it. This is against the 18-year-old.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I get all of that.
I didn't get that.
It's still horrible parenting, dude.
It is horrible, but it's going to be much
awesome.
more funny now.
It's double. It's the double reverse. Yes.
Yeah. And little brother this is the best part of his year. It's a gift you're giving to William because
just
there's
watching
nothing
the
better.
meltdown that will happen
nothing
is going
better
to be,
for
we
a
need
little
it
brother.
filmed in 4K, with 32 angles. So in light of that, we do just different things throughout the year like that and just have fun. And so this year, one of the gifts that my kids have gotten in the past is a stack of lottery cards. I'll just go to the convenience store and buy, 5 $1 tickets, 2 $2 tickets, and a $5 ticket or whatever, and just stuff them in their stocking. And so I did that. And it was pretty obvious that I was literally out in the dining room ripping them up. But I also ordered from Amazon these. And you say, you can buy lottery tickets from Amazon? Yes, sir, you can.
What?
That are guaranteed
Really?
winners.
What?
Guaranteed winners.
Oh,
Guaranteed
I see where this
$1
is
billion
going.
winners.
Oh my God.
And the kids are all competitive.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And it's a $20 one. So it's whoa, this is a $20 ticket. This is the big mammer jammer, And the kids are all competitive. And we try to figure out, Liz and I were talking about how are we gonna hey, everybody, let's and I said, no. The best way is to just pay it no mind. Just let them take, and then when they scratch them off, they scratch them off. Well, it kind of evolved into, hey, there's nothing else to do right this second. Let's do our lottery ticket. So it was perfect. All the kids were sitting at the table. So I get my phone out and I set it up perfectly. I had the spot already set up that I was going to do. And they're all going through, oh, I got a $1 winner. Oh, I got a $2 winner. Oh, I didn't win anything. And they're all looking at, they're looking at each other's as they're scratching it off. And Caroline notices, wait, how come I don't have a $20 one? That's BS. And I was like, I can't do this to Caroline because I can't put her in on it because we've had her part of it too. One year, for example, she really wanted an iPhone and the boys were like, you're not getting an iPhone until you're 12. You don't get phones until you're 12. So we got her an iPhone. We put an old iPhone in a box, wrapped it up. And she's like, oh my God, you got me a phone. And the kids were like, the boys were like, what is she 6? They were so mad. And, so we just told her and we told her about it. She was in on it, but I couldn't get her in on this. And it was a gamble because William has more emotion than Alex, so if William would have got to his first, they both did them about the same time, but Alex figured it out first that he was a winner. William would have it would have been YouTube quality, like send in to all the late night comedy shows, he would have been on TV. Alex's was so demure in his response, but he was like exactly how you're supposed to win a lottery in front of everybody. You're supposed to be like,
yeah, shut up.
you know, like I can't say anything right now. Anyways, so we have this great video of the kids just scratching off their thing, and you can see Alex, he's just doing this. He like looks, and and I'm not paying attention. I put food in my mouth right at that moment just so that I always had, it's something going on.
Good.
So I couldn't like, hold on, what, and he's like losing his mind. He's like, and he like comes up to me. He's like, Dad, I want $1 million. I'm like, what? No. And he's like, yes, it's right here. And I'm like, holy crap. And just as that was going on, William's like, what? Did you win something? And he's scratching his off. And he's like, this one says win all, 200,000, 300,000, 100,000. And he's like, go crazy. And Alex is like, I won $1 million. And William's like, wait, wait a second. Like you could just see them all of it come together. And I said, well, what does it say on the back? Like, because you got to claim your ticket, right? So this is what it looks like. This guy right here, and
yeah, we just sold about 5,000 of those.
Oh
fake
my gosh,
tickets.
it's so great. It's so great.
Because
but you can't just hand it out, right? Because it's like, what's the point? You got to mix it in with something else, some sort of. You got to have the big setup that goes with it. But it says these prizes are available in full wherever tickets are sold in your dreams.
In your dreams.
Yep. It says
just in little tiny print, so nobody.
Oh no,
it.
it's legit. Like it looks just like the back of a lottery ticket would.
That's great. The other one I like that I saw on social media, guys, I like the ones where they take grandma and they wrap up stuff from her house and they take turns giving it to her.
Oh, that would be.
And then like the first one you always see in the video, grandma's like, oh, I've got one just like that. And then the second thing, she's like, yeah, that's a coincidence. And by the fourth one, she's like, I think somebody's stealing from me.
That would be good.
I think next year we're going to do that to Mom.
Yeah.
I think that'll be great.
I like
Get
that.
all that on video.
So we like to do these little things along the way and have some fun. And that was a hoot, quite the hoot for.
I can't wait to see the car.
Oh, dude, it's going to be.
Great.
The meltdown of the 18-year-old who got the rust bucket, $3,000 car for his 16th birthday versus, and William's like, dude, make it like a Lambo or something. I'm like, no, it's got to be believable, like a Mustang convertible or something, something that's doable financially. And, it can't be, you're not going to buy your kid a freaking Lamborghini.
That's fantastic.
Take him outside and be like, happy birthday, buddy. And just watch Alex's face melt. It'll be freaking awesome.
Doug, save the TV and movies for next week. Make sure you don't lose those because we're going to hit that. Okay. I know I previewed that earlier, and I don't think we're going to get to it. So next week, guys, Doug's big movie and TV show reviews.